With me for this session, number 25, I have Mr. William Conlon and Dr. Robert Carnahan.
I was involved with a project in Venice where I had a long way to go to the Gulf to get rid of our brine. I got the bright idea that we should use deep well injection. And so that it turned out we did a study, and it was cheaper to do the deep well injection than to go all the way to the Gulf with a pipeline. And so that was the first use. And then we shortly after did a second one. All of this while I was at Post Buckley, Shoe and Jernigan. In 1977, I left PBS&J for a short period of time, got married, and went on my honeymoon to Saudi Arabia to put in the first seawater RO unit in the world in Jeddah. I worked on some of the preliminary chemical treatment design in San Diego with Gulf ROGA, and then went to Saudi as a site manager for about a year. And that was quite an adventure. I could write a book just on things that happened to me in those days. Then when I came back, I was involved in a concept that Paul Culler and Stu McClellan had at Basic Technologies called membrane softening. And a fellow by the name of Herman Conrad and myself designed the first nanofiltration plant at Pelican Bay Improvement District in '78. And so this is a very interesting field, and it just keeps on going. Pilot tested ultrafiltration before anybody was thinking about it on surface water in Brevard County. Later got a chance to put ultrafiltration in front of RO at Shamu's tank in SeaWorld, and that was a reverse osmosis plant. We reduced the TDS and threw that away as the brine, and took the brine and put it back in Shamu's tank to concentrate the artificial seawater. So you might say that was the first time ultrafiltration was used in front of seawater type RO unit.
As part of that program, the 6-inch diameter element became a standard for the military,
Right.
which was not a standard in anywhere else. How did that come about?
Okay. What happened was that I was the director of the water and petroleum, or actually petroleum and water technology division at that particular time. And we had been working with the 4-inch element, and as you said, there was no 6-inch element at that time. And we were trying to figure out how we were going to deliver this water. Well, it so happened that what happened, I had put together just a brief flow sheet. And the idea was that we needed larger diameter membranes, and we needed to get away from centrifugal pumps for high pressure. So we went to essentially plunger type pumps so that we could control the filtration rates within it. And then I talked to Bob Riley, and Bob was casting 6-inch elements for Jeddah at that time.
For Jeddah?
For Jeddah. Huh. And this was in 1970, about 1977, 78 period.
That's the project that you worked on.
Yeah,
that was
They must have just got the award at that time.
Yeah.
That was the 8-inch element, so.
Yeah, but they
You
went to
8-inch, but Riley was rolling 6-inch.
Okay.
And what we did is we went and got somebody to put together the pressure vessels, because the 6-inch fit well on the side of this thing when you consider the height you were limited to. And so we put in 4 pressure vessels that were 6-inch in diameter. And Riley was rolling elements for Jeddah. And I called Bob and I said, Bob, can we get 8, 12, or 16 of these elements? He says, I can't give you one. And then I said, look, here's the situation. And the Army was sitting there waiting for elements to be delivered. And Bob gave us, out of his batches, he let us come out and select the number of elements we needed, and we went to 6-inch. Well, then the Army decided, and rightfully so, they needed a 3,000 gallon per hour unit, and there they went to 8-inch elements. And so you have this 600 gallon per hour unit sitting down there with a no-name configuration with a 6-inch pressure vessel and elements. But he rolled those elements for us.
Yeah.
And then they were standardized for the military.
Right.
But I have an interesting story about generators or generator power. Did you mention that? Yeah. The first seawater RO plant in Jeddah, each skid was powered by its own power generator system. And the reason was that the Saudis, in case of war with Israel or whoever, they could take these skids and move them anywhere at their military sites.
Ah, so they essentially, and that was, what, a 3.6 MGD plant, as I recall?
Oh, you know.
Something like that.
No, it was...
How many trains did you have?
Some of them must have been 10 or more.
So each one they could pick up.
They could pick it
kind
up.
of like a rope.
Yeah, well, sort of like a giant rope.
Yeah, that's right.
Giant
That's
size.
right. Isn't that interesting? You had done some early work with UF ahead of RO.
Yes.
Where was that?
That was SeaWorld in Orlando.
Oh, that was for Shamu's system.
Shamu's system.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And we had some interesting problems. I sent the engineers out to get samples. I said, please get me composite samples of Shamu's tank. And they didn't. They went and took grab samples. So the water showed up cleaner, and they didn't take any samples after Shamu was fed and all that oily fish got in the water. So here there's a finished unit there working and plugging up with all this oil.
And that was built by Basic Technologies, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
And what UF did you use there? Do you remember?
It was, yeah, D-Sal's spiral one.
Oh, spiral UF. Yeah.
D-Sal, that
okay.
was either G20 or G10, one of
right,
those.
Right.
Anyway, what we did was then I found out when the feeding periods was. I put it on a timer, and I would have it, the unit, the control valve closed completely, and just at zero recovery, have the membrane wiped clean, and then put it back in service again, and that worked.
Bob, is there anybody that actually you felt influenced you in any way in the membrane side of the business?
Okay, if you're talking about the water side of it, yeah, Dick Schmidt and then Bob Riley, the group out at Fluid Systems, Dave Furukawa, they all had an influence on my stand. Probably the strongest influence I had, though, as far as membranes was concerned, was my commanding officer who said, "Get it done." And no, Colonel Hughes, who was an exceptional commander, was very supportive of the program. So those people, I think, influenced me more than anything else as far as going into the field of membrane technology.